In Chapter 1, Standard talks about the evolution of social media. He then goes into detail about how Facebook took over MySpace and became the head of the social media world. He then transfers into talking about the idea of a shared social environment and how we are all connected by social media. With social media, it is easier for everyone to know each other, and it makes information accessible to everyone, even those who are not present. In Chapter 2, Standards talks about social media and how it began with the Roman Empire and Julius Caesar. Rome was so successful, partly because of how they were able to maintain a wide network of contacts. While most information in the city of Rome was exchanged at the Forum, which was the center of the political and social activity, outside of the city walls, they mostly relied on letters. One particularly interesting thing that they did with letters is their use of abbreviations, such as we do in text messages today. An example is Marcus Sexto SPD, meaning Marcus sends many greetings to Sextus. For short distance letters, they wrote it on wax tablets mounted in wooden frames that folded together like a book. The interesting thing about these tablets was that you could erase it and rewrite on it as well. They wrote the messages with a reed pen dipped in ink derived from cuttlefish or from a mixture of soot, gum, and water. Important political letters and documents were copied and passed through the empire for others to see. The nearest thing to a newspaper was the Acta. It was published daily, but only one copy was made, and it was founded by Julius Caesar. Caesar was a large activist to sharing and publishing information. However, not a single copy of the Acta survived. While the exchanging of letters was reserved for the elite, ordinary people participated in different ways, one of those being graffiti. Walls of Roman towns were covered in written messages by ordinary Romans. Chapter 3 focuses heavily on the Dark Ages and the age of the printing press. In the late 11th century, universities began to rise, which in turn made literacy rates go up. The Pica system developed in the 13th century was an attempt to scale up the hand copying of books. It would divide books into smaller sections and then be copied, hence making it easier to read. In 1440, Johannes Gutenberg created the printing press, which would change the shape of the world forever. Perhaps the most notable and earliest use of the printing press was done by Martin Luther. Luther did not agree with the Catholic Church and how it was being run, especially the selling of indulgences. So Luther decided to write his 95 Thesis, which he would go around handing out and nailing to walls of churches and buildings. It spread like a wildfire, eventually splitting the Catholic Church. His thesis did not cost any money, and it would spread through towns where it was printed, and Luther's friends and followers would also pass it around. Luther did not know, but he changed how information would be spread from there on out. Luther faced many repercussions, such as the Edict of Worms declaring him an outlaw. Chapter 4 focuses very much on poetry. In 1535, Margaret Douglas, the niece of Henry V and a lady in line to his queen, Anne Boleyn, became secretly involved with Thomas Howard. They were thrown in jail, and some in the family were killed as well. Lady Margaret, while under her arrest, wrote love poems to Lord Thomas. These letters survived because they were written in an unusual book known as the Devonshire Manuscript. Devonshire Manuscript was passed around with many people, all adding their own. There were 194 entries, most of them which are love poems. They speak about how they have to hide their love, however it is hard to tell what the manuscript says. They coded their poems so the courts couldn't figure out what they were saying. Even though the printing press was available, it just made handwritten manuscripts that much more valuable. What perhaps is most interesting after reading these chapters is seeing how we communicate and use social media today. It is so rooted in how those who lived so long ago before us communicated as well. From the Roman Empire to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, truly the social network has been evolving for centuries.